Hello, welcome to our mediation training. My name is Inely Cesna, and today we're going to be talking about de-escalation tips for high conflict personalities. So some of what we're going to see today, you may have already seen in other videos. I have a video on communication skills, which covers some of this, but this is specifically for high conflict personalities. Some of these personalities are assertive personalities that come with a lot of domination, often intimidation, and trying to take over the process, take over, the whole process in mediation. And so, how do we manage them so that they stay in the mediation and we can actually cultivate from them the qualities that they can bring to the table? So let's go right into it, and I will share my presentation with you so that we can talk a little bit with a little bit more details on what we can specifically do when dealing with a high conflict personality. I want to highlight two interesting books here, and I'm referring to these books in these presentations. One is called De-Escalate, How to Calm an Angry Person in 90 Seconds or Less. The other one is Super Communicators by Charles Duhigg. And so some of what we're going to see here is covered in those books, and we're going to see also things that are not necessarily there. But both of these books and what we're going to talk about is on reducing the emotional intensity during a confrontation. And that emotional intensity often reflects a defense mechanism where the person feels afraid, feels rejected, feels left behind, feels betrayed. So there can be a lot of underlying issues there, but we want to reduce that emotional intensity, minimize the hostility, avoid escalation of the situation to a more serious condition, and hopefully restore the dialogue, if not the relationship. And in order for us to do that as mediators, I find it so important to separate the person from the behavior. The behavior can be so antagonistic that is just so difficult to deal with. But the person is not their behavior. I like to think that our behaviors are like clothes we choose to wear. Often, sometimes we have a style in clothes, just like we have a style in behavior, but that's not who they are. We can change our behavior just like we change our clothes. Inside every clothes, there is a person, right? There's a body, there's an essence. And inside every behavior, there's also an essence. And often that essence, that beautiful, loving essence there, is dressed up in a way that makes them look hostile because they are hiding the pain. They are hiding the sense of betrayal, the sense of being weak, the sense of being rejected, that we harbor inside in situations like that. So it's important to bring that into our awareness, because it helps us deal with the communication tips that I'm going to tell you next. The first one is the paraverbal communication. When dealing with high conflict personalities, it's so very important that we manage our own paraverbal communication so that we can calm down the tone by the way we are present, by our presence, by our tone of voice, by the pitch of our voice, the speed with which we talk, by the volume of our voice. We can utilize melody, right? Melody in the way we speak, and can be, oh, hey, I hear you. I hear this is so painful. Look, what if we take a breath? What if we take a moment with, what if we look at this in a different angle? So there's ways of utilizing melody in our voice so that we are not approaching the same tone all the time and speaking with that tone, which can feel like an attack to us, right? So melody can really be powerful here. The next thing is to recognize and name the emotions. When we are in an emotional state, our limbic brain is activated, which means we are not really thinking, because the rational thinking happens with the neocortex. So when we name someone's emotions, we are lending them our neofrontal cortex in such a way that they can begin to activate theirs. So just by saying, oh, I see how upset you are, I see how this frustrates you, I see how disappointing this can be, they can count, okay, they see that I'm disappointed, they see that I'm frustrated, they see that I'm upset, and that can calm the emotions and start to activate the neofrontal cortex, with which we need for a rational conversation. So, that those are the examples. I see how angry you are. I can see how frustrated and hurtful how you feel here. Or I can recognize your concern or that you are afraid. The next one is framing and reframing, right? So we want to frame the context in which this is happening. Look, we have to go through this process because we want you to be the best you can be for your family, for your children. We need you here. We need you to cooperate and to collaborate so that you can be the best you can be. You can bring forward the best of you to your family, to your child, or something like that. We also want to reframe, to soften up some of the harsh expressions. So instead of "he lied to me," we can say, I see that he was untruthful. He was untruthful, or he was dishonest, or something that kind of brings a little bit more of a softer tone to the accusation. Another way to deal with high conflict personality is through nonviolent communication. This is also part of a very famous book by Marshall Rosenberg called Nonviolent Communication, and pretty much has a little formula, right? It's a 1, 2, 3, 4 formula. First thing, we want to repeat what we heard the other person say, repeat their perspective so they know we heard them, we understood their perspective. Then we want to acknowledge their feelings. I acknowledge the way you feel, so they hear, okay, they heard my feelings. They heard what's underneath this for me. Third, we want to acknowledge the other person's thoughts, what led them to feel that way and to have that perspective. And finally, we can then make a request. And so it sounds a little bit like this. I hear that your spouse cheated on you. I hear that he was untruthful to you. I see that you felt betrayed and you felt disrespected by his actions. So here, and you think that she should never be close to your kids again. I hear your thoughts here, right? And then finally, I ask you to consider what would be the impact of that in your family. What would be the impact of your children never again having contact with their father? How would that impact them? And so you start following this formula as a way of preparing the field for what you want to bring forward. And so what you're bringing forward is your request in the end, but before you bring forward the request, you make sure they hear that you understood their perspective, you understood their feelings, and you understood their thoughts. The other tip here is apology. The last thing that a high conflict personality person expects is an apology. And there's so many ways we can bring apology in order to disarm them, in order to reduce tension, in order to create self-regulation, emotional regulation, and open space for resolution. This happens just by acknowledging feelings, for example. I am sorry you feel hurt. I am sorry you have to go through this. I am sorry this made you feel frustrated. Express regret. I'm sorry you are going through this situation, right? I'm sorry this is the card that you're dealing with right now. Or reflect the circumstances. I'm sorry you were not aware of this. I'm sorry that this is the way you had to face this, that this came unexpectedly. Or offer, genuine hope. I'm sorry that this has happened this way, but here I'm hopeful that things will be clarified, that things will be moving forward. So apology followed by genuine hope can truly disarm the person in front of you. And you can apologize for anything, right? Apologize for anything, for the technology not being working well, or for anything. It's just a demonstration of what you want to see more. So as a mediator, apology works as a demonstration of what we want to see more. And we want to see more of that responsibility taking responsibility for our pains, taking responsibility for what's present, taking responsibility for the cards that we've been dealt in life, and also create that hopeful path out of it. There is always a way out. We are here to support. We are here because we know we can be hopeful towards a better future. And finally, a gratitude. Gratitude is also a wonderful way to neutralize emotions. It has to be sincere and strategic, of course, to disarm the defensiveness and to reduce the hostility of the situation. So always finding something positive we can focus on, something positive we can be grateful for. Well, I appreciate that you try to resolve this matter all alone. I appreciate all that you've done in this issue. Oh my God, it has been going on for so long. I appreciate your resilience to go through the process. I appreciate your attempt to handle this situation. I thank you for your candor, for your trust. I thank you for bringing forward the matter in such an authentic way. They may be very intense in their communication, but hey, they are being authentic, and there is something to be grateful for. Thank you for your willingness to open up so truthfully here to me and to share all of this. So gratitude also starts to plant the seeds of what you want to cultivate during mediation. And these are wonderful tips. My exercise for you is to practice them. Practice these points in your communication, in your day-to-day communication with your family, on the phone, whatever it may be, with your neighbors, and then bring them to your mediation experience. And then you can see how powerful they can be. So utilize them, try them, and I hope they can do wonders in your mediation. Thank you so much for watching today. This is the end of this session, and I thank you for listening.